Hey folks, JD here, and welcome to another instalment of the Beginner's Guide series. So today we're going to be looking at pre-flight checks, but just before we get started there, just to let you know, if you haven't seen the other parts, you'll find them in the description under the playlist called Beginner's Guides, and you can just catch up with everything that we've been through. So just to recap, on last time we were talking about safe flight, the drone code, and how to ensure that you are responsible for every single flight as well. Now today we're going to be talking about pre-flight checks. So what are pre-flight checks? So I used to spend quite a bit of time on every single flight video going through the pre-flight checks, and then people started saying, JD, we've seen lots of this, mate, just stop it, we know you do it. So essentially what pre-flight checks are is ensuring that your quadcopter is stable and everything is attached properly, ready for flight. A little bit like an MOT of a car, you want to ensure that you've got a ticket just to say that your car is fine for the next 12 months, it's going to be safe. So with this, you look at some aspects of the quad and ensure that the parts are tightened up properly, but not too tight, and ensure that the quadcopter isn't just going to fall out of the sky because of a malfunctioning part. So some of these pre-flight checks may include the following: looking at the propellers, looking at the propeller screws, gimbals, cameras, landing sprigs, propeller arms, batteries. So let's dive into some of those a little bit more. So let's look at body structure. So what I mean by that, if your quadcopter is badly damaged and if some of the propeller arms are snapped, then the flight is going to be a little bit more tricky. What I would recommend, don't fly it, repair it, make sure the repairs are solid, test it, and then fly it. Also, looking at the propellers. Now, when these motors spin, brushed or brushless, they generate quite a lot of speed. Just to put it into perspective for you, my little whoops that you see hanging up here, not that one so much, that was a bad example, but say this one here. Now I have blown many a motor on this because I use it quite a lot. Now these motors are brushed, and the common misconception is that brushed motors are terrible. They're not anymore. These particular motors are cordless brushed motors. They spin up to 50,000 to 60,000 RPM. Now, that's a bit crazy when you look at the size of this and you think there's four of them. And the amount of power and the amount of pressure, going through, and the amount of pressure and how hard these have got to work is incredible. So what you want to do is you want to ensure that all your propellers are on nice and safe and your motors are as safe as they can be as well. So let me run you through what I do when I'm in the field before I fly every single flight. Now let me give you a couple of examples with a couple of different style quadcopters so you can see what I do every single flight. So let's look at this tiny whoop. So this is sort of an entry-level racer. It is very quick. It's a very nice quad. Now what I do every single time is I make sure that all these propellers are on nice and solid. So these are push-pin propellers. So what you want to do is just ensure that you push these down a little bit. There may still be a little clearance inside here between the motor and the propeller, and a little bit of clearance is fine, but you don't want these propellers to be jutting out a long way. So just push them in slightly just to ensure they're all okay. These two screws here are known for coming loose a little bit, so just ensure that you have a screwdriver on you and you just tighten them up. Now, as with any screws on anything like this, as a quadcopter flies, it's going to be moving. So you want to ensure that these particular screws and any other screws are thumb tight. They're not any tighter than that. As for any other parts, the battery is the main other thing here. Ensure that it sits inside this battery holder here snugly. If there's too much, if either the plastic is bowed or you can slide the battery out just by pushing it or just tipping the quadcopter up, then don't fly until you fix this. That should ensure that you have a nice safe flight out of a quadcopter such as a style like this. Now let's move on to something a little bit bigger, which has GPS. Something which is more or less a very sort of standard quadcopter shape and size. So with this, there's not really a lot that could go wrong. So you have your propellers once again. These once again are push propellers. So just ensure that, these are screw propellers. So just ensure that they are screwed in properly. And a way to do that is you normally have a motor holder and you'd hold it using that motor tool, and then you can twist to ensure that it's in. Now, if we just look at this, you can see that there's nothing showing inside there. There's no thread. It's down there nice and tight, but not too tight. And that's what you're sort of looking for with a quadcopter of this style. As for the light caddy underneath here, you want to ensure that all the screws are in. and that they're in, again, thumb tight and there's no problems there, and that you can't pull this off. If you can pull it off, then with any sort of vibrations, it'll come loose. With a camera module, you want to ensure, that was the battery, with a camera module such as this, you want to ensure the camera module is in nice and securely, it's clicked into place, and that, even though there's a button here to release, that you can't release it just by pushing it. Because if you can, then when the quadcopter is at full positive pitch, you may find the camera slips out. So ensure that the camera is in there nice and tight. And then we come on to the battery. So when the battery is in, once you click it in, you want to have that very firm click, and you want to ensure that your battery is not going to fall out. If it falls out, do not fly. Now, once again, there's a catch under here that you push, and then the battery comes out. But it's quite stiff, it's quite hard to do that. Ensure your quadcopter battery holder and your quadcopter battery bay and the battery all have that definite click or slide or lock. Make sure whatever mechanism it is, it works properly. So that is just looking at this particular style of quad. And now if we look at a very popular style of quadcopter, which is a racer style, with this there's a lot more to check. Now with this you have a canopy which is clipped in through 4 points, left and back, front and rear. Now what you want to ensure is that these points are properly clicked in, but not just that. See, the level of clearance from the propeller and the main body is very, very small, very, very close. You want to ensure that nothing rubs up against that, so that you've got proper clearance for every single propeller all the way around. Likewise, you want to ensure that your antennas, your receivers are all screwed in nice and properly, that there are no nicks in your cable from where the propellers have been spinning, because yes, that has happened to me a few times. All your electronics are all nice and neat out of the way. Now, as this is a tilt rotor, as you can see, we've got, which is a different type of quadcopter again, we've got some cables here. So as the motors turn, you want to ensure that no cables are going to get stuck in any parts here which could hamper the movement of the quadcopter, or worse, could snip the antenna, sending this quadcopter into the floor. Now, there's another problem with this I have to fix, and that is this particular receiver here is very loose. So I'm not going to fly it until I've got that back in there nice and safe. Likewise, you want to ensure where your battery fits in, which is the battery bay inside here, that everything is properly locked in place. That is done by these two very thick Velcro straps, and also a little bay inside here as well, and these two little metal brackets either side. If you get any rips in your Velcro, throw it in the bin, get a new one, because that is then, if this snaps mid-flight, your battery is going to move around, which is going to alter the trajectory of and the flight of your particular quadcopter. What I like to think, folks, is don't take chances. If you're umming and ahhing about whether or not you should take a quadcopter up in the air, then it's probably better not to take it up. So these have just been 3 particular styles of quad, and some of the things you may want to do on these quadcopters to ensure that the checks, that the flights are all nice and safe, by ensuring the pre-flight checks are as follows. There is one other thing as this though. You've also got screws on top of here, nuts and bolts. Make sure the bolts are all done up after every flight. Don't forget, the pre-flight checks are not something that you do once, they're something you do every single flight. Don't take chances, folks. Make sure it's all done and all done properly. There we are, my friends. With all those pre-flight checks taken into consideration on the quadcopter side of things, you've also got the transmitter pre-flight checks as well. It's not just down to the quadcopter. So let's just look at a standard transmitter, and then I can show you exactly what it is that you can do about that. So here are 2 different style transmitters. Let's have a look at them one at a time. So here's the first one. This one is a transmitter which you use with your Unique, but at the same time it's a game controller-esque one. Now there's not really a lot that can go wrong with this. You have a built-in battery, make sure that's charged, make sure all the buttons depress properly and come back up properly as well. If one sticks when you're not holding on to it, then you may want to just get a pin on the inside and remove any sort of crud or any sort of dirt from inside there. Because say a lot of these buttons, you have got buttons on here for emergency stops, for taking videos, taking photos. If, say for argument's sake, your emergency stop button is all the way down, then your quadcopter is going to fall out of the air. So you want to ensure that every single button depresses properly and has full articulation and movement. Also, you want to ensure the battery is fully charged before every flight. Also, the other main thing about this, there are 2 points. One is this holder, the FPV boom, which your phone fits in here so you can see what your quadcopter sees. This comes off quite easy. Doesn't take a lot. So what I do, because sometimes this goes in and it does click, but it does feel a little bit as if it might come undone. So what you may want to do, if you have one that has clicked or snapped, then I would recommend buying a replacement. If that's not available, then you could, and it's just a suggestion, you might want to stick this down just to ensure that it's all nice and solid. Give it a try, see whether it works. And then likewise, you want to tighten up these bolts left and right here to ensure that your phone, when it's in, is locked in properly and it doesn't move all over the place. So that's one transmitter. The second one is pretty much the same, really. You just want to ensure you've got full articulation over everything. All buttons work, you can push them in, you can depress them. There's no problems with the batteries. This is not a transmitter which allows USB charging, so you have got to put in brand new batteries in there. Fortunately with this one you have a telemetry screen and it shows you the battery of the transmitter in the corner of it. You want to ensure your antennas, if they are real, are up and focused properly at the quadcopter. Don't forget, if you do focus them properly, just bend them down slightly just to ensure you have a proper proper range. Again, with the FPV boom, that it's on securely, isn't going to move. See, that's really difficult to move. You can tell by how much pressure I'm having to put on because of my thumb. But at the same time, putting on a lot of pressure is good because you want to ensure that your phone inside here is nice and safe, because you don't want to be flying and then your phone comes straight down on your hands and restricts your movements, or does that, because this particular movement usually turns off a quadcopter. So you just want to ensure that nothing out of hand is going to happen, all buttons to press, everything looks okay, and the transmitter itself is sound. These are very, very important, folks. Look after them very, very well. And then the final element to your pre-flight checks, you've done your hardware, you've got everything set up, you're almost ready to go. The final pre-flight check is your surroundings. Are you clear? Are there people? Are there buildings? Any obstructions? Is there a stray dog? You don't want to have somebody push you, a dog run into you, so it's going to lose your balance, then your quadcopter flies all over the place. Just ensure where you are is adhering to the drone code and is nice and safe. Right then, my friends, I hope this has been of some use to you. If you've got any questions, hit me up in the comments or hit me up via my email, which you'll find on the channel. Just give me a couple of days to reply to that because I only check once every few days. There we are, my friends. I hope you've enjoyed. I've been JD. You've been fantastic as always. I'll see you on the next instalment of this particular video. Take care and happy flying.